Yes, 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 brothers and sisters. Have you heard of John Edward Quinlan? Here. John Edward Quinlan. Came across John Edward Quinlan. He was the land surveyor who, according to one YouTuber, has a title, Who Knew the Earth Was Flat. However, his book right here is entitled, a pamphlet that he had published is entitled The Earth a Plane. The Earth a Plane. Now, on our old channel, some of y'all might recall, and maybe we'll get that re-uploaded again so ones and ones can check it out for themselves. Some of our previous vlogs and videos. And there was a few that we did when the whole flat Earth was kind of trending, when it was just basically, really beginning, to build up. And ones were asking about, oh, what do you think? Do you think that the Earth is a flat Earth, as the Bible really says that the Earth is a flat Earth? What about this, Ras? So Yadin did a few videos. I, Rasiadonis, here, the Prime Minister, of the LOJ, the Lion of Judah, Society of His Majesty, right here. So here on the Rastafari Yehudim, and also we're live streaming on Rastafari Israelites. Check it out. Here we'd like to address this black man, and I say this brother, especially in the way that he wrote his book. Now, he is often lumped up with the so-called flat earthers, so forth and so on, but actually, and this is also part of this whole scientific, what some might refer to as scientific racism, so-called white supremacy and white racism, especially when it comes to certain things institutional. Because really, this man here, he was a British land surveyor. Let's just bring up this, wanted to do some research, had come across his information. I've seen his picture before, along with some other research previously. And then in doing some related research, we came across some documentation information, and we said, all right, this will help us at least address maybe two related points. One is that the Earth is a plane, not a planet. The definition of planet, scientifically speaking, if we get to the roots of it, is a wandering star. The Earth is a plane. As far as the Earth being flat, do we believe in flat Earth? Well, the Earth is not flat, right? It's not flat. That's what we were saying before, and then we were saying, well, the Earth is a plane, not a planet. So our main argument or reasoning, and where we seek to provide information, documentation, and where possible, verification. Because it's kind of clear that in spite of what NASA and what the institutions, the academic and scientific institutions have said concerning, space and Earth, especially with the NASA is really on the tip of the spear of this particular point because of all of these now admitted CGIs. Because first they wasn't admitting the CGIs. Now they're acting like, oh yeah, of course it's a CGI. Of course it's a CGI. But then we wonder, like, if all these millions and even billions of dollars are being spent on space exploration and research, and satellites are being sent up there with all this modern technology, and we have digital technology and all these cameras, and even the phones can, some phones really are able to capture pictures well, and they're very small. Even what they call it, like surveillance devices, have really tiny cameras, but very strong, powerful cameras. And this is just in so-called the civilian life. Just among civilians. Not that we work for military and government. And why would it be a bad thing, right, if they're out there in outer space with their satellites and their telescopes, just to turn the telescope around, as many people have said, turn it around, right, and show the Earth and just like pan the camera. If I went to visit some place somewhere, and I say I'm at this place, and you say, no, you're not, you never went to this place, and I'm there, and I say, yes, I did go to this place, and I'm showing you pictures, but you're like, wait, this is a digital CGIF image. You made in one of those apps, where one of those apps can take a picture of you and then it can convert it into kind of a photo, or like a avatar, something like that. Those kind of programs that can do those kind of things. There's a lot of apps like that, right? So basically, even if there was an original picture, it can take the original picture and make it like a caricature, so to speak. You know, depends on how much of a caricature you want, but it can take a picture and make a picture like a painting. Maybe that's what they're doing with their Earth views, because something about it, a lot of the Earth views we get to see that they say, and remember, they tell us this is a view of the Earth from outer space. This is how they have made us believe, to make believe. And we're talking about modern times. We're talking about here in the so-called 21st Gregorian, the 21st century. Now, back in these days and times, speaking about ones like John Edward Quinlan. Have you heard of John Edward Quinlan? Now, here he's pictured in this pamphlet from 1904 that's entitled The Earth a Plane. Now, when I came across this, I've seen this picture. I know I've seen this picture before, but just recently came across like the book cover. All right, I'm going to show you the book cover. Let's see, we got the book cover right here. There we go. Here's the book cover. All right, so here's the book cover. All right, but it's the title right here, The Earth a Plane. I said, Chan, why did this black man say the Earth a plane, not a planet? And he didn't say, well, the Earth is flat or flat Earth either, because as we read through this short, brief pamphlet that he wrote and published circa 1906, in his way he seeks to describe and articulate. He doesn't just jump into this whole flat Earth thing, right? Because the Earth, as we said in videos from 5, 10, at least about 10 or so years ago, might be a little before that, but let's say 10 or so years, give or take. Probably maybe a little more than 10, but within a 10-year range of time, where we had many of our previously published and posted videos. A few of them in the title, we say the Earth is not flat, right? Not flat. And we kind of emphasize that yes, the perspective of the Earth, generally speaking, right, from some of the original, quote, flat earthers or flat Earth perspective, brought out and still do bring out interesting perspectives that much of so-called modern science has just ignored. And they give us the Copernicus, the scientific, the math. And then the math of Copernicus, admittedly, if you know about math and how they use these kind of mathematical formulas, the math is very interesting. It's even elegant. I'm talking about Copernicus. Now, Copernicus wasn't not the first one. Actually, there was, what's his name right now? There was a Greek, allegedly a Greek astronomer back in Egypt of the Ptolemies, when the Greeks, right, when the latter-day Greeks, like we say more the white Greeks, when they took over ancient Egypt in the time of Ptolemies, and they had Alexandria, remember Alexandria, the city, and remember they had the Library of Alexandria, and they, history, or the European telling and narrative of history from that time tells us that, well, Alexandria, it was a place of high learning and culture, where the Greek world and the ancient, you could say Egyptian, where the Egyptian and the Greek world came together, and there was a lot of syncretism. They blended a lot of things, like the Serapis. Some of you might have heard about Serapis. And then this is where some of the theories about whether Christianity or so forth and so on among the Gentiles, the Europeans, come in. But there was a particular scientist, I'll call it amateur, they say, well, back in those days, astronomer, and he's the first one to go against the so-called geocentric model. There was a geocentric model. And then it was proposed that actually it is a heliocentric, right? So from the geocentric to the heliocentric. Found that to be interesting because they said he was, how many years? At least a millennium or so. Millennium, maybe a little more than a millennium. Yeah, a little more than a millennium before Copernicus. But Copernicus actually gets a lot of the credit. And it's from the Copernicus that the heliocentric model has been continued to be put forward by the academic consensus as proven, right? I'm not saying it's proven, but they tell us that it's proven, right? This is a whole other kind of exploration on the whole, Copernicus, heliocentric or geocentric. So it seems as though much of the old world believed that it was geocentric. And when we say geocentric, mean that the Earth was actually the center, right? And that the sun, the moon and the stars, that they move around the Earth. And the Earth, as with many ancient writings and scriptures, it can be brought out and it can be argued, such as the Bible, that the Earth is not spinning, right? That is still, right? That the Earth is still, and that it's the heavens that turn around the earthly plane. And some of y'all might have heard us when we mention it, we say, as the Earth turns around the earthly plane. And then in further research, we got to find out that there were earlier scientific investigations and researches and other researchers from previous generations that also held that there was a celestial globe. Have you heard about the celestial globe? But what happened was that they flipped it to the so-called earthly globe, right? That the Earth is a globe, right? Like the Earth is a ball, and this ball is spinning, what they say, like some 66,000 miles, and then the sun is moving, and the Earth is revolving, and at the same time that's revolving, it's actually turning around the sun, and the sun is moving, and it's kind of just spinning, and everything is spinning and spinning. Everything is spinning. The Earth too, and the Earth is moving at 66,000, I think, miles, or spinning at 66,000 miles per hour, and it's on a tilt too. Did we say it's on a tilt? Well, they said it was on a tilt, so it's on tilted. It's spinning, and it's not just spinning and revolving around its axis, but as it spins and revolves around its axis, it's spinning and revolving around the sun, and the sun is also moving and zooming through space. And then all the other so-called planets, wandering stars, is also spinning and moving. All this is spinning and moving. And then when people say, but we don't feel nothing. And look at the clouds. The clouds seem to be moving at their own pace, not as though the atmosphere, and then they tell us about, then they go into the gravity thing. And then if you question these things, they'll say, you don't know science, you're a dummy, you're stupid, you're a blockhead. And see, when they go there, when many of the globetrotters, so to speak, not the real globetrotters in the sense of the real globetrotters that was even talking about all this pseudo-scientific speculation, but when we speak about those who defend the globe, right, the global, right, the global. Now, just to note that the heliocentric and the Earth as a ball spinning thousands of miles per hour on its axis, and then as it spins thousands of miles per hour, 66 some estimate, I just kind of wonder, like, how do they get that speed? Can they show us the scientific research? Not see what they're going to do probably, and they have done this for other things, where they get a number, like they say, well, this is like 6 billion years old. Well, how did you get that number 6 billion? And they figure since it's such a big number, all they have to do is begin to go into a little bit of their speculative mathematics, and then people say, oh, wow, these guys are really brilliant. They're smart. It must be 6 billion, 6 million. It must be spinning at 66,000. Right? But it hasn't really been proven, has it? It's like we saw a video the other day. I'd like to share this video of Ones and Ones. It was about the speed of light, measuring the speed of light, and was questioning whether, light has truly been measured. And it went into some of the research about the whole speed of light. Like, what is the speed of light? Many people can tell you can Google right now, like, what is the speed of light? And they'll tell you what the speed of light is. Question. Now, we would think of all the science and technology that they'll be able to, no doubt, measure the speed of light. But then when you get into the details of what it will entail and take, like, you get your friends together, you need some equipment. Okay, let's get them some equipment to measure this. How would you go about it? So they went through how light has been allegedly measured. And then they came down to that what has really been measured concerning light is not the one-way travel of light, but the round trip. Because in other words, to measure like, okay, light going from this point A to point B, right? How do you time it? How do you set up a timer? You see, some of these things we'll think in our head and we'll say, oh, this is easy now, Cody. Look, we have all this technology. We have, Wi-Fi, internet, computer, cell phones. This is all easy to do. But then when you get into the mechanics of truly measuring it, this is where you find the difficulty of it. And this is why even those, I'm going to say physicists, but, those who have been studying this, right? And even those who would tell you, well, yes, the speed of light is this figure, is this number. See, they go for that because that is what the consensus has accepted. It's almost like, it's like the omerta. The omerta, you know about omerta? Is the mob. The mob have this thing called omerta. It's like, you keep our secret. We got a secret, right? So a lot of these scientific, these Gentile institutions, they do have a secret. Yes, many ones do seek to study and find and know things and the knowledge of things. But you also have to, when you start to ask the real questions, right? Do any of us really know what the real shape of the earth really looks like? Have you seen it for yourself? Right? According to the present scientific theory, scientific methodology, right? To use the same proofs or the same principles and methods that they use to prove other things or to test a theory you or me would bring, let us apply these same principles to many of these theories that we have been led to believe is true. Such as when they tell us that the earth is a planet. Do you really know what a planet is? Before we get into this brother's book right here, we're going to touch on a little bit of it, but I just want to share that there was a black man. This black man here, John Edward Quinlan. And who was John Edward Quinlan? John Edward Quinlan, he was a British land surveyor and said to be a socialist of African descent. He was founder of the National Society for the Protection of the Dark Races and editor of its main organ, the main organ like newspaper of communication, the telephone. It was actually called the telephone, the main organ of the National Society for the Protection of the Dark Races. And he was also the author of The Earth a Plane. This was a treatise in support of what is called the flat earth theory, in which he proposes that, quote, evaporation, end quote, accounts for the disappearance of ships over the horizon, not the convexity of the earth. So here it has like selected biography or bibliography. John Edward Quinlan, last name Quinlan, 1902. He wrote something entitled The Labor Problem. The Labor Problem, an idea of a British workers' society. And then in 1906, John Edward Quinlan wrote The Earth a Plane, right? And this was published in London by the author. He had some press coverage. We see in 1906, Flat Earth Man. There was an article in English Mechanic and World of Science, 84, and it has a number here in parentheses, 2163. One was issue 125, but it was on the 7th of August, 1906, right? The 7th of August, 1906. Let's see if we have, okay, right here. I think some of these might be some stills. Yeah, it was an article, what he wrote. It's a couple of pages. I thought it was like a whole book, but it's maybe about 10, between 10 and maybe, between 10 to 15 pages. Let's see if we have, let's see if we can have this right here. Let's see if we can just bring this up and show you. Here it goes right over here. This is, well, actually it's a little less than that, right? We have the PDF right here. This is a little bit about what John Edward Quinlan had wrote. And there was a press coverage from 1906, August, the 7th of August, 1906. And here's what it said, just to share this right here. But one thing we like about this particular author here, John Edward Quinlan, is first of all the title of his book, because it's our emphasis when addressing or seeking to redress this whole controversy concerning whether flat earth, right, versus the globe. Some say that the globe, the earth being a globe or a planet, has been debunked, right? And from the evidence that we've seen concerning that, there's a whole lot of debunking there. Then there's other documentation and research and investigation that has been put out that we do review. I must admit that maybe initially, as we were discovering things concerning the Earth being a plane, not a planet, and the Earth not being flat, because there are highlands and lowlands. There are heights, like elevations, like we refer to, say, Ethiopia, there's a highland, Ethiopia, right? And it's called the rooftop of Africa, and there's like the Himalaya mountains, and there's highlands. And some land masses, like countries, are at a higher level above the so-called horizon, the horizon, or above what they would call, the horizon, or even sea level. And there are some places on the face of this earth, the earthly plane, that are below sea level, just as a matter of fact. So this is why we never ascribe to the earth being just the flat earth theory, but we will say in response to that the earth is not flat. But the main point that we seek to defend and initiate our engagement of this subject matter is that the earth is a plane and not a planet. And I wondered why there were very few that really addressed it. Everybody seemed to just be going with this trend about flat earth, flat earth, flat earth, flat earth. Even though we have high points of the earth, we have some countries, some land masses that are extremely elevated above the horizon. And we have other countries and land masses, according to the geography, that is very much below, right, the sea level or below the horizon, such as ancient Egypt, for example. Ancient Egypt is way below, and Ethiopia, the origin of the Kemet, is way above. So this shows us, just from just a plain observation, right, as they call it, observation, one of the principles used in science, right, that we also verify as a scientific principle, observation. From observation, the earth is not flat, as many of the flat earth theories and ideas seem to insinuate, seem to convey, and many ones overtly just say. But here, let's touch on what this particular article right here, Flat Earth Man. So here he is called Flat Earth Man. And then we can get into a little bit of what he actually said in this document right here. The earth is a plane, right? Now, if we were to do a document, we'd probably say the earth is a plane, not a planet. In fact, we might even name and entitle this video, The Earth is a Plane and Not a Planet. So as more ones grow in that knowledge and recognize the truth of that particular fact, perhaps maybe some credit or accreditation will go to the Society, LOJ, and to I and to other brothers and sisters that also understand and articulate this particular matter. But flat earth, English mechanic, and world science. Did I say medicine before? I got to rewind and see if I said medicine. But the newspaper, the publication is called English Mechanic and World of Science from the 7th of August, 1906. And it's an article entitled Flat Earth Man. And this article here is addressing this work by John E. Quinlan, John Edward Quinlan. There is another, quote, Flat Earth Man, exclamation point, end quote. He has issued a pamphlet, so technically this would be called a pamphlet entitled, quote, The Earth a Plane, end quote, and his name is John Edward Quinlan, quote, Commissioned Land Surveyor of St. Lucia and St. Vincent, British West Indies, end quote. Mr. Quinlan deals with the, quote, globites, end quote. Interesting that back in 1904, there was even a name for the global, for the Balaam folks, the global folks. And here, this is the name globites. Very drastically. So Mr. Quinlan deals with the globites very drastically. His explanation of the proof that the world is round found in the fact that the hull of a ship disappears first from view owing to the convexity of the earth, while the mast, as the higher part remains in view after the hull has disappeared, it is all due to, quote, evaporation, end quote. He says, John Edward Quinlan says in this pamphlet, It is clearly owing to my truly level ocean. It is clearly owing to my apologies. It is clearly owing on my truly level ocean to the evaporation of the water, as this causes the atmosphere that is nearest the water to be most clouded. There are many miles of level water between the ship and the observer when the hull has just disappeared from view on a clear day, and there are several miles of level water beyond the ship. The evaporation that goes on between the ship and the observer obscures from view that part of the ship that is nearest the water first. And this is the only part of a quote that they have right here. And then it points out some other, we can call it the zetetic standard. Ones like Samuel Robotham, Parallax, one who was called Parallax, Samuel Robotham, zetetic astronomy. Then we have ones like Thomas Winship or Thomas Rectangle, known as Rectangle Winship, also zetetic cosmology. There's ones like William Carpenter, or known as William, quote, Common Sense Carpenter, and in something I think in parentheses says 100 proofs. 100 proofs. And then we have this man here, this black man, John Edward Quinlan, and they have in brackets here, it says evaporation, not convexity. Then Alexander Gleason, New Standard Map of the World. We have ones like Orlando Ferguson, Square and Stationary Earth. Ones like Wilbur Voliva, $5,000 for proving the Earth is a globe. I wonder whether anybody was able to collect on that or respond to that back in those days. This is like in some of the biblical proofs. Then there's others such as Gabrielle Henriette, the solid vault of heaven. And lastly but not leastly, one named Sansaburo Kobayashi. Sansaburo Kobayashi. And that's the Kobayashi Map. The Kobayashi Map. So here, this is like one of the wiki, I don't know if it's look like a kind of a wiki type page, right? And they want to call it kook science. Now, you know how it says like the foolishness, the foolish things to confound the wise, because of course this whole idea by evaporation, when I read over it, I was like, evaporation? I was like, what's he saying, evaporation? And of course it's easy to at first dismiss. And even much science that is regarded as verifiable science today, when it was first proposed, it was basically considered, imagine when somebody said about like the whole Thomas Edison. In fact, they said it was a black guy that really worked with Thomas Edison that was known to be, a natural, a natural and a native genius, the black man. And he worked with Thomas Edison, and we know about the lights, but can you imagine when the Thomas Edison was talking about electricity? He was like, electricity? Oh, that must be dangerous. And people had all these wild ideas because they was not used to it. This is how anything that is truly scientific is. But what's interesting is that the whole globe theory, it doesn't seem to have had much pushback. You know what I mean? When we really look at how the whole globe, the heliocentric and globe theory, because the two go together, right? The heliocentric, that means that the sun is at the center of everything. The sun is at the center of the universe. And the globe, and that the earth is not a plane, but the earth is a planet. Oh, before we go on, let's just touch on this right here. So here, let's go to planet etymology. This is what we want to do. Okay, now look right here. Okay, planet etymology. We're looking at the etymological roots of the word planet. I just looked up right here, as you can see, planet etymology. Just a quick Google right here, right? Because now the Google has a kind of a simple breakdown of the etymology. So we have planet, right? Planet. The origin from the Greek, planon. So the origin of the word planet in this Western Gentile culture come from the Greco-Roman linguistic and languages. That's the origin of the Western Gentile civilization, right? The Anglo-American civilization, the Greco-Roman, right? You could say culture. Basically, we're living in a latter-day form of what earlier was known as that Greco-Romanism, right? Or some could characterize it as white supremacy, white racism, right? Because it's interesting that when the Europeans, so-called white Europeans, came on the scene, even though they encountered great and ancient cultures and peoples, because they were able to subdue them, right, through their violence, their bloodshed, and their war, and their cunning and their trickery. Remember the link with Rome and Esau. Just remember that right there. They thought that every other people, even people who they admired their ancient achievements and greatness, that they were smarter and wiser. And when they encountered ones like in ancient Egypt, the Greeks, they sought to eat. They were voracious. That means they had a great appetite, right, to consume, to study, to learn, and to consume all the ancient culture. And that's where we get the link with the Library of Alexandria, which they say that they burned the library at Alexandria. I often say, not before they got the good books out. They took the good books out and they burned the rest of the library, so therefore the cover story can be, we lost everything. You see what I'm saying? Now, of course, there's different kind of theories. Well, there's a couple of different ancient testimonies or ancient accounts of what happened. Some dispute whether these ancient accounts were right and accurate, but I like to go to the ancient accounts first and foremostly, because if they were the ancient ones that were closest to the time, no matter how outrageous it might seem at first glance, imagine we testified to something that happens in our time, and then people 1,000, 100, or many years in the future just totally dismiss what we're saying, like we didn't know what we witnessed or what we heard. I think we need to regard the accuracy, at least, of what was believed in ancient times, and not to think that we here in these latter days and times are the most sophisticated and advanced, and we're so smart, and everybody in the past was just working off of spookism and mythology. That right there is not a original way of thinking, right? It's like it's like AI. It's like artificial intelligence, right? It's like the sort of intelligence or asinine, AI, asinine intelligence. And the European, the white man, the Greeks, the ancient Greeks and Romans, they had a lot of that. Even though amongst them they had ones that were interested in documenting and cataloging, right? The good, the bad, the ugly, even the wild things. And for that, we are grateful, right? We must say we are grateful for that, right? Because there was much that the white man, the European, did not understand. And though it sounded wild and crazy to him, he could not rightfully disprove, and the cultures that he stole or misappropriated that knowledge, he could recognize by the visible art and facts and archaeology, like ancient Egypt, that these were great cultures. So therefore, he chose to do perhaps the most wise thing, right? To grab, categorize, ship off to his libraries and museums, right? Try to study it. If his wise men in the first generation couldn't figure it out, he saved it for a next generation. It's like when you see them studying ancient Egypt, what's interesting, in studying ancient Egypt and other ancient cultures, we find that there are some generations of Western Gentile academics that have been studying the same thing. Have you noticed that? They go over the same thing, right? From generation to generation. And then they look at and review the works of those before them, right? And they're not quite as dismissive as some of the black consciousness and black ones, like as we are on some of the platform, the Sinetta platform, and some of the other social media platforms out there. Even though we might have different perspectives of different knowledges we hold to, right? We haven't gotten to that level of objectivity as of yet. Even for us, right, who's trying to find things about ourselves and know things about ourselves to save ourselves from annihilation, to raise ourselves up from this fallen, this sunken place, right? We still have not developed that grace of objectivity, right? And therefore, even though the European, the white man, has made some progress in learning and understanding ancient knowledges and science, because science just equals knowledge. Let's just break it down to the main thing. Now, how they set up the systemic knowing, the system of science, the system of knowing is subjective, right? It's subjective, because the same things that apply, right, that they will apply to us if we say flat earth, or if we say the earth is a plane, they don't apply these same things to themselves. But we'll get into that a little bit more. Let's go into this right here. So the planet, right? We just touched on this right here. We kind of segued as we touched on Greek. Planet, planon. Planon means wanderer. So in the ancient Greek, since they went to the Greek to find a word for the so-called planet, why couldn't they find a word in ancient Greek for planet? You understand what I'm saying? For example, if we want a word for man, there's a word for man in Greek. And it directs, we don't have to choose another word, right? And then do some reverse engineering and say it's man. I'm saying that to say that if planet is supposed to be this globe that they allege we're on, then why is the root of planet, as you can see right here, why is the root of planet, right, wanderer? From the Greek planon. All right, and then this word now from this, and we can see how like this shows the descent. This shows like the origin. So the seed of the word planet right here, right? The seed of the word planet.
Planet.
You see, you heard that, right? Planet. Learn to pronounce it. Can you say?
Planet.
Okay, so we're touching on the etymology of the word.
Planet.
Okay, so learn to pronounce.
Planet.
Okay, so here is the etymology of planet, right? The origin is from planon, right? Or planon. Planon, planon, wanderer, wander, to wander. Then we have planetes, also from the Greek means a wanderer, comma, planet. So are they saying that a planet, if they say there are, the ancients, they say believed in 7 planets, some say 5, then 7, and then they had told us when we was growing up in school, they said it was 9 planets. Then I think about 10, 20 years later, they say, well, they actually demoted Pluto. Pluto is no longer a planet. Interesting, it was allegedly discovered in 1930, right? Coronation, the King of Kings in 1930, right? Pluto and Hades was discovered around that time. And those were planets that were from the ancient times, symbols of hell and Hades. Interesting, the correspondence of the finding, discovery of Pluto and Neptune, right? And the whole hell and Hades, and then the coronation of the King of Kings at that same time. Just like to connect the dots. But here we have the word planetes, right? Is a wanderer. But planetes is also planet. Then this word now jumps from Greek into the late Latin. So the Latin, which is the Roman culture, even the letters that we use, the English so-called letters, are technically, rightly called, scientifically called Latin. Right? So we use Latin. We speak English in the Western Gentile world, and we write in Latin. Did you know? So from the Greek planetes, wanderer and planet, it jumps over now into Roman culture, because the Romans basically idolized and regarded highly Greek culture. This is kind of the interesting historical thing. They looked up to Greek culture, right? They idolized and looked up to Greek culture. So they adopted, the Romans adopted almost everything Greek, with one exception. The only thing that the Romans did not adopt from the ancient Greeks, do you know what that is? We touched on that before. Is law. They did not adopt law. So the Romans kept to their own Roman law, right? Law, the legal law system. But they adopted, other areas of Greek learning, right? And we find it also linguistically words to describe things, right? Like the word planetes from the Greek, we now find it jump into the Latin as planeta, planeta, and planetes, right? And then from the late Latin, it jumps into the Old French, right? Planet. Almost sounds like a kind of French word, planète. That's what that E at the end, therefore will be planet, right? Planet from the French. From the old, it was planetes. They drop off the S from the Greek at the end. And then in the French, since they don't pronounce like that last letter, right, in words, except if it's attached to another word, this would be like planète. So here we get, you see, it descends into planet. And then from the Old French, it comes down into Middle English. Let's zoom this out. It comes down into Middle English, right? Into Middle English, right? And Middle English from the Old French, this is why now they explain this at the bottom right down here, right? Middle English, let's go over this, from Old French, planet, from late Latin, planeta, planetes, from the Greek, planetes, wanderer, planet, and its origin is planan or planane, planane. Right? Now let's go down here to the Etym online. Now, planet, etymology, origin, meaning of planet by Etym online. So let's go here. So here, right now, before we used to go to the old like Webster's, some of the old Webster's and other dictionaries, they used to have those dictionaries that had like the etymological bracket that basically gave us the same thing. So now in this modern time, we can kind of use the online, but before you can find it like in the old Webster's dictionary. It gives you the definitions, but it also gave the etymological brackets on words. Right? Because sometimes we even compare and contrast and say they did a pretty good job in kind of transferring it and having it more or less easy peasy to research. So here we have planet as a noun. Late Old English planete. Planete, planet. In old astronomy. I want you to hear this. In what? Old astronomy, not modern astronomy. You know, the shame of modern astronomy and NASA, and shame on them. Because they've been giving the world all these CGI, CGIF kind of images. And initially, they was just making the people believe that this is actually what the picture of the camera took. And then we find out that, wait, they got satellites flying all over outer space, billion-dollar satellites, and not one of them can take a digital picture, take digital pictures or real film. Right? Even when they show some pictures allegedly of the space station or the satellite, if you notice, even though they have the convex on the camera lens to make the Earth seem like that curved, like a part of a ball, they never zoom out. You notice that they never zoom out. Recently, we was watching a video, and the person that did the video went to a website, and at the web page that they went to, they showed a NASA upload, and this NASA upload said, oh, a picture of the Earth and the moon passing in front of this forget the satellite that they say that's up there, that is between the sun and the Earth. And they show on a NASA site the actual position of the satellite to try to explain why the picture that they're showing of the Earth and the moon passing in front of the satellite. So basically it's the Earth, right, the satellite, and then behind the satellite is the sun. But the moon now comes between the satellite and the Earth, and you see them, they show us a picture of it. So this is uploaded on the NASA site as a picture, almost like this, like a live picture of the Earth. But the moon, look at this, wow, the moon just comes across the view, right? The moon flies across the view of the camera. Now the camera is, the satellite is positioned in front of the sun. Now, when you see the picture, like that NASA had right there, you have to stop and think, say, wait, you mean the same sun? The same sun that they say we have to watch out for solar flares and the magnetivity and the other kind of frequency that the sun emanates because it can fry technology. And so there's a satellite that is positioned right in the path of the sun. It's right between the sun and the earth, and it happens to be focused on the earth, and it's allegedly just watching the earth allegedly as it turns, allegedly, and then the moon comes out of almost nowhere in front of the camera and in front of the earth, and it's so fake. It is so fake. You know, I thought they were going to say on the image, oh, this is a CGI, but no. NASA actually, and this is what the person who did the video was showing, and it wasn't just one picture. This was like say maybe a couple of years ago, right? And then they took another picture similar a couple of like a year or two later. And the interesting thing about it is almost like the same, you could tell it's the same kind of CGI Earth. And oh, this is the good part. They were showing the dark side of the moon. So according to this NASA satellite that's positioned between the sun and the earth, right, and was taking a picture allegedly of the earth. So I mean, these satellites don't take real pictures like, you know, like we would think they could just put one of these cameras and technology on these billion-dollar satellites and it can take pictures just like if we were out in outer space, allegedly we can take a picture on our cell phone. Like if you're on the space station or whatnot, I would expect you to take a picture off, you know, like if we was on a satellite or a space station and we're up in outer space and we're saying, oh, wow, it really is a ball. Wouldn't you think we just take our camera out and say, look, I got to show you all this. I'm right here. And by using, you know, when somebody takes a video camera, right, it's not always a steady hand, but it's moving around, it's focusing here, it's focusing there. But that's what adds authenticity to it. When we are looking at these CGIF images, still images, moving images, we see that they are fake. It's like what we see in the movie, and sometimes it's worse than what we see in the movie. You know what I'm saying? And just pause on that for a moment. I say all of that to say that right there, we don't have like they say, like a horse in this, you know, a horse in this race, so to speak. Like if the earth really proves to be a ball, if the earth really proves to be like a plane, or more like the flat earth, maybe not flat, but more like has its highs, its lows, but basically it's a plane, not a planet, right? Or if it proves to be a globe, if we can just see the proof of it, not for them to run what they like to do, a lot of these ones who think that they are brilliant at some basic science that they took in school, high school, or at some junior level of college. They'll make ones and ones, you know, others who have differing views. Oh, these people are so stupid. So many people, the stupidest people, believe the flat earth. These are dummies. These are a bunch of jackass. And that right there tells me that these people know there's some truth to it. Because otherwise, all they would have to do is just present their evidence and let the evidence basically speak for itself and would not have to ad hominem. So we see a lot of those who are the globalists that believe in the globe, or been made to be naive. They made to believe, make believe in the globe, because they find that others, maybe their family and friends, are beginning to ask questions or have doubt about the conventional view and the consensus that has been given to them. They want to deride these people as being like the stupidest, dumbest jackasses, you know what I mean? And you recognize, oh, you know what I mean? You're not upset because their argument is wrong so much. You're upset because you want to know, how can all these people be believing their eyes and the basic arguments that some of the flat earthers and the earth plane, the plane earthers, that's a good one, the plane earthers are putting forward, is more convincing than all of the intellectual, mathematical, Copernican, you know, psychobabble, you know, because they'll talk about, oh, well, you don't understand this theory and that theory, and you don't understand physics, and because you dropped out of school, you barely got a GED. But what does that have to do with someone saying, well, you're saying the Earth is spinning on its axis at 66,000 miles per hour, and it is just revolving that fast? I don't feel nothing, right? And then you say it's a ball, and the sun is a big super giant 93 million miles away, right? And it's shining on the Earth, as you show in some of your, as they show us in their diagrams. I mean, their diagrams tell you something. I remember when I was young, I had this poster on my wall, and it showed the solar system. Right? It was a really nice book, nice color, nice beautiful color pictures, but a lot of it was basically CGIF. I didn't know at the time. I thought, oh wow, that's how the sun look. Oh wow, that's how the planets look. I remember I spent so much time looking at that book, showing the heavens, the astronomy, showing the Earth. It had maps. It was a great book. That had this poster up on my wall, and it showed, okay, this is the solar system. This is our solar system. You know how they used to like to do it. This is our solar system. Wow. But the thing that always got me is like the sun is that big, and therefore you're saying that these are all the planets, including the ball Earth, and their relative positions to the sun. And the sun is this big, but they said, hey, in the fine print, it's 93 million miles away. It's this big gas giant. I said, wow. But something always bothered me, because when I look up in the sky and I see like the sun rise and I'm outside and it's like the daytime, when you're outside for most of the day and you see the sun come up. You ever been outside somewhere for like most of the day and you keep looking up at the sky and you can actually see the sun traveling across the sky, across the earthly plane? Right? And you can see it as a ball, you can see its shape, its outline, and you can see that it's moving, and you really don't feel the Earth moving, but they tell us the Earth is at a tilt and is spinning at 66,000 miles per hour. See, when they said the miles per hour, I said, hold up. 66,000 miles per hour. How many hours in a day? Right? According to the Bible, Yeshua says, Robenu and I Rabbi. Yeshua says, don't know you not, there's 12 hours in a day. So if this is moving at 66,000 miles per hour times 12, and then we observe the sun, being outside, and we see the sun moving across the sky, and then we look at those scientific, those pseudo-scientific, because though they are the scientific establishment, what they're saying is pseudo. See, I didn't know it at the time. And something about that poster and those books when I was growing up about it, I was very much into astronomy and everything. I said, look at the Earth right here. I remember even in school, they would have these examples where they have a big ball, like they would have something like a basketball would be the sun, right? And then something like the size of something like the size of a tennis ball, for example, right? Maybe even a little smaller than that. Right, would be the Earth. And then they show this is the approximate distance. I said, oh wow, so that's approximately 93 million miles. They say million miles, right? They didn't even try to say 93,000 miles. Maybe it's only 9,300 miles, but they say 93 million miles away. And then you look at the perspective of the Earth and say, okay, I'm here in America. All right, I'm way over there in New York. So when I'm looking up at the sky, they're saying that the sun 93 million miles away, right, is this big, right? Now the Earth is spinning, right? They say the Earth is spinning, right? And it's spinning on its axis, right? I mean, spinning on its axis, and then it's also spinning around the sun, and the sun is moving and spinning, and all the other planets are moving and spinning, and I'm wondering, where's the sun going to? Right? And why is the Earth spinning around? And then the Earth is spinning on its axis, and it is revolving around the sun. And they say, well, through all this spinning, all this movement, right, is how we get, it seems like the sun rises and sets. This is what we are seeing when we look up in the sky. Can you say bullshit? You know why they say bullshit? Because even when they use the manure of the animal, they would not use the manure of the bull. I want to do a whole video on this. Might still do a whole video on bullshit. It was interesting. I thought about it. You ever think about why do they call it bullshit? Because when they use the animal manure, the best manure that is desired and is used and has shown itself to be profitable for farming, if you're going to use animal manure, used to be the cow, the female. It was the cow manure, the heifer, the cow manure, not the male manure, not the bull manure. But what would happen is that some of these, like I have some cows and bulls and animals, and, on the farm and the land back in the days, I would basically, sell the manure, to ones and ones. Now they would expect to get the cow manure, but I would have bulls and cows. That means I would have the males, the bulls, and the cows, the female. So what they would do, some, people would cut it. They would cut the bull. They would cut the cow, the female manure, which is more fine. The male manure, the bull manure is thicker. So they would cut it. They would kind of mix, the bull manure into the cow manure. So you think that you're getting a pound, 2 pounds, 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 50 pounds, right? When in essence, you're probably getting like 35 pounds of cow manure, right? And the rest, well, that's some bullshit, right? That's exactly what they was giving us. And then I wonder, how come people don't see this? I guess it takes, people are so used to the animations that they give you, the animations when you're watching different videos and different things, they animate something, that when we hear something said, right, we are unable, it seems many people are unable to construct a vision of it, like to animate it in their mind, to run it, like to run program. They can only run program on the computer. They can only run program on some device. They no longer are able to run a program in their mind. And remember that man was the original Makshava, right? Makshava. Man was the original computer, right? Man is the original computer. But now, because of technology and because of all the make-believe, the make-believe, we have almost lost that power of imaging what is said. Like somebody telling you something and you're working it out in your mind. It's almost like somebody who's a carpenter or somebody who is a builder, like a mason, a carpenter, somebody who have to use skill and math. And you're describing something to a builder, right, who really builds and cuts it and knows how to do all of that. They can basically see it in their mind's eye. Some artists are like that. Some singers and musicians. Some of y'all, if you're a DJ or if you're spit lyrics, you can listen to a beat, you can listen to a rhythm, right? And you can hear the rises and falls and different motion of rhythm. And some can do like the Jay-Z, right? They can basically, without writing anything down, just ask the operator to bring it back. Let me go in the booth and record something. You can see the whole thing in your mind's eye. Well, what about this bullshit that we be hearing in the modern pseudoscience? And this is why this whole flat earth theory and flat earth investigation and speculation even is so threatening, right? Because I think that's the truth of the matter, because I got some videos I would like to do where I'll basically show that both the flat earth, the so-called flat earth theory, and the globe, right, theory, both of them appear on a few questions that we have, investigation. We get to see, wow, both of them might have no explanation for this, or both of them, their explanation falls short. We cannot say that even the flat earth, explanations explain this. Neither do, right, the globe. And some of them are very simple, straight in your face points. Just like the point about the solar system. I wish I could show you a picture. I probably can show you a picture because I'm speaking about this right here, and some might be hearing me. And in hearing me, sometimes they say a picture is 1,000 words. Let me see if I can bring up the picture or a picture close to it. It's one of those pictures where they show you the size of the earth, right, in relation to the sun. Not those pictures there. It's those pictures where they show you like the galaxy and everything, like the solar system. And then they say, okay, this is the size of the earth in relation vis-a-vis. I know we have it here. Didn't want to go too deep in my archives, but since I took a little bit of time to speak on it, because it's breaking down the fact that the earth is a plane. It's the earthly plane. And as far as whether it's flat, what's flat is the flat horizon. That's what we said before. The horizon always is the level. Have you noticed that? The horizon is a thing that always seems to be the common denominator, right? That's what seems to be the common denominator. Let's see if we can find this right here, because we're going deep into this. Okay, here it goes. Here it goes, right around here. Okay, the one we was talking about before Copernicus, the ancient Copernicus, was Aristarchus of Samos, right? Aristarchus of Samos, the ancient Copernicus. He's actually the first one that had, come up with the helio, right? I think it was a heliocentric, right? Yet, even back there, they went with other theories, and it would take some hundreds of years. Okay, now this is one of the ideas right here, right? This is, you have the Earth at the center, which they say the ancient world and many cultures in the ancient world, they had that belief. And then we have the sun at the center, right? Or what they call the heliocentric, right? The heliocentric. Now, this is a little bit better, but they actually show the sun much bigger in the presentation. You see how big the sun is right there? Now, imagine being on one of the so-called continents, one of the countries, right? As you look up at the sky and you see the sun is moving from the east to the west, they are telling us that, you see how it's arranged? Look at the heliocentric, for example. What's happening is that everything is turning and spinning, and the earth is not just turning around the sun, but the earth is actually spinning on its axis, right? Axis at 66, on the axis, right, at 66,000 miles per hour. So it just seems to be that if the earth is spinning at 66,000 miles per hour, how long does it take it to make one rotation? They say a day. So remember, it's 66,000 miles per hour. You see, something doesn't just line up with that mathematics. And maybe I'm wrong about that. And they say, yes, you're wrong because you don't understand. Have you ever heard of this theory or that theory or this formula? They'll give me formulas. See, what the Europeans managed to do was to write some clever formulas, make up the whole, symbology of it, and basically write some clever formulas. In fact, when you see a lot of the scientists writing their formulas, it kind of reminds me of, ones and ones writing their scriptures, right? For most ones and ones, we'll talk about the Bible, but if you put the Hebrew of the Old Testament or the Greek of the New Testament, they won't be able to read a thing, right? But the translation they can read, and they're trusting the translator. We've done that too, but then when we follow up on the translator, we find out that the translator is not always correct. And in some respects, the translator is absolutely wrong. Yeah, it's these sort of models right here. There we go, right there. This is the idea. But this is not quite accurate, even according to what they tell us. Because even though it's showing right here the planets, as they call them, circling the sun is also allegedly said to be moving. The sun is also moving, right? It's spinning, it's moving. The inner planets orbit faster than the outer planets. That's what they tell us. The inner planets orbit faster than the outer planets. So all this is not just, see, here it's showing us it's moving around and it's steady. It's moving around and the sun is steady. But that's not what the theorists, right, the scientific model, the theorists actually show us. Okay, this is, now you see how big the sun is right there? It's like that kind of, and you see how small the planets are? All right. So when I see that, I say, well, how is it that looking at the sun throughout the day in a good clear sky, it seems a different size than the size they show us? The relationship. I'm looking at the relationship of the sun in their diagrams and in their scientific explanations to the relationship of the size of the sun to the earth. And then from a perspective, okay, let's say that's true and we are on the earth, and then when we look up at the sun in the sky, based on what they're telling us is the mechanics of what's going on, these two views don't merge. Right? These two views. Okay, here it goes right here. Here it goes. This is it. This is it, brothers and sisters. Thank you for your patience. This is it right here, here, here. Now, this is what they're telling us is going on even right now. It doesn't stop. It's been going on for thousands of years, day by day. This is what's happening. The sun is just flying through space. That's why I said that the other model was incorrect, because they make it seem the sun is just staying still and all the planets are turning. But then they tell us like the planets are turning, the earth is spinning around the sun, and all the planets are spinning around the sun, and the sun is also moving. The sun is like running, it's moving, like in this diagram right here. So you see those lines go in the circle, that's where all the planets, and the earth is moving around at the fastest. Now, that is said to be what produces the seeming effect of day and night, right? And when you see the size of what they say the sun is, right? Even being 93 million miles away, they say, and they show us it's very, very big, right? And then it's supposed to appear in the sky based on the model here. It's supposed to explain what we see when we look up in the sky on day by day. This don't make no sense. So this is basically, this is where we sought to show you. Let's see if this one's a little better. Okay, I think this one is a little bit better. Yeah, this is actually much, much better. You see that right there? All right, if we can see which one is the Earth. Can you make out the Earth right there? All right, let's see if we can make out the Earth. Can you make out the Earth right there? I think it's that one. No. All right. Because it's moving around. Yeah. Yeah, it's the inner one moving around fast. You see the one moving around fast? Because it says the third rock, right? Third planet, the third rock from the sun. That's how they say it, the third rock from the sun. So yeah. So this is to explain what is happening day by day. And yet, no movement is felt because they say gravity. Gravity holds us down, they say. They say gravity holds the water in place. I guess gravity prevents the clouds from zigzagging. I saw a meme the other day, and it said, how come the sun doesn't have like, like as the stars have a streak, have a, what's it, a streak? Have like a tail. Yeah, how come the sun doesn't have a tail? Like right now, if we witness like a star, falling off, flying through it has a tail because it's moving. So how come the sun doesn't appear like that? So they're telling us that the way we see it on Earth, let's not believe our lying eyes, but let's believe their formulas and their CGIFs. When, I'll say this one more time, they have not been able to show us one picture. Right? I know that they're probably going to try something. They probably already have tried something, right? And didn't work out, right? Because in order for them to show us a real picture, right, of the Earth, not a CGI, and even the planets, the so-called planets, the real wandering stars, even the so-called planets, have you noticed, even those are CGIs. Even the pictures that they show us of the moon. Now, people say, look, they've been to the moon. They've been to CGI. That's what they've been. They've been to CGI. Now, think about this for a moment. If they really have satellites out there, like in the whole moon crossing the path of the satellite, and they made it out to sound like this is an actual picture, nowhere in the description, right? And the guy showed everything in the video, right? It went to the page. You watch it right there. Nowhere in what NASA presented did they say, oh, this is a CGI. In fact, the way that they presented it, they presented like this is a picture from the satellite, sent back to Earth from the satellite. I said, wow, the satellite can send back these sort of pictures. So you see the Earth in the background turning, right? And then you see the dark side of the moon. And it's a very interesting, dark side of the moon, the side of the moon that they say that we never see. But yet the picture was not authentic. It wasn't authentic. You could tell that it was like a bad CGIF. It wasn't even a good CGIF, right? Because when you look at it, you say, this is how it looks. And also classically, right, just seems to be no stars, right? And notice, as the Earth is spinning around the sun this fast, isn't it interesting that the constellations must be connected to the globe. The constellations must be connected to the globe because as we look around day by day, if you watch the sky and watch the stars, you will see the stars also maintain a regularity. But they tell us the stars are actually thousands of miles, like hundreds of thousands of light years. Sometimes they tell us away, but yet we see the Milky Way. We see all these stars that are thousand. Now, how is that possible in this sort of a model? You see, it's these sort of questions right here that are the simple questions, right? That no amount of scientific formulation, right, can just explain it away, because none of their scientific formulations explains it anyway, right? So here, kind of spend a little bit of time on this. You just sort of find this right here, the Earth a plane, right? The Earth a plane, and let's just get to this right here so we can get in and out of this. It's not a planet, right? So late Old English, planete in Old Astronomy. In Old Astronomy, it says a star other than a fixed star. Star revolving in an orbit. Now remember, this is Old Astronomy from late Old English. So this is during the time of the English speaking time, the late English speaking, the late Old English speaking time. Planet, planete, planete, planet. In Old Astronomy, it was defined as, and this seems like a post, this is definitely post Galileo, and this is definitely post Copernicus. This is after the time of Galileo and Copernicus. This is in the revision of science, that they define a planet as a star other than a fixed star. Isn't it interesting? The Earth is spinning, right, at 66,000 miles per hour. Yet the Milky Way and the other stars, right, that people who watch stars regularly in season, out of season, find that these stars, they move in a gradual progression or procession, right, across the heavens. But yet, in the model they show us of how the sun is zooming through space and the planets, including the Earth, is spinning and revolving around it, it just doesn't, it doesn't figure. Now, if they're going to tell us that the stars are part of the Earth or the globe atmosphere, the globe, like is part of the globe structure, that means that as the Earth is spinning 66,000 miles per hour, that the stars and it has its own stars somehow connected to it, might explain why when they go into outer space, and they show us some of their CGIF, their make-believe photos from the make-believe satellites, it means that there's no stars in outer space. When you get to outer space, like their alleged satellites do their photos, really CGIs, there are absolutely no stars. Isn't that a curiosity? Because they know if they CGI in the stars, if they start to do that, they're going to get even more caught out there. They've already gotten majorly caught out there. What people don't recognize over the past 10 to 20 years, right? The fact that people have put together that the NASA photos that they were given since like since the first so-called moon landing were all fake or not very credible. Though many ones still want to believe it because they believed it from the beginning. Now, when we go to the Old French planete, from the French planète, right, and directly, it says directly from late Latin, right? Just notice that right there. It's directly from late Latin, right? Directly from late Latin planeta, from the Greek planetes, from asteres planetai, asteres planetai. So now here, notice what they have right here. They have here asteres, in the parentheses is stars, and planetai means wandering, right? wandering stars. From planastai, planastai, to wander. They say here this is a word of uncertain etymology. Really? We just showed you the etymology, right? Why are they saying it's from uncertain etymology? Let's go further. They say perhaps it is from a nasalized form of the PIE root pele, which means flat. Uh-oh. Which means what? Flat. Planet, pele, flat, to spread. Sound like even the biblical description, how he spread out, right? The earth upon the waters, right? Flat, to spread, on the notion of spread out. But they say the semantics are highly problematic. No, it's not the semantics that are highly problematic. What's highly problematic is their pseudoscience that the majority of the world has been made to believe. Right? See, so they actually show you and share with you, right, the real evidence, and then they say, well, this is problematic. Don't go with that. But yet it is the real evidence from the evidence that is findable that connects with what we're seeking to know about. Now, according to Bikis, right, who notes the similarity of meaning to the Greek plazane. Notice it. Now, according to Bikis, right, Beekes, who notes the similarity of meaning to the Greek plazane. What does this mean? To make devious. Uh-oh. To make devious, to repel, to dissuade from the right path, to bewilder. So all of a sudden the earth has become not just the earth, but has become the planet Earth. Now they say that according to this one Bikis, who knows there's a similarity of meaning, right, to the Greek word plazane, that means to make devious, to repel, to dissuade from the right path, to bewilder, but adds, it is hard to think of a formal connection. Really? He's saying it's hard. Well, here's the formal connection. The formal connection is that the earth is not a planet. The earth is a plane. Like John Edward Quinlan. That's the name, Quinlan. Trying to get that name right there. John Edward Quinlan, as he said, right, even in his 1906 document, Quinlan, right, John Edward Quinlan, as he says, the earth is a plane. The formal connection is that when he started to call the earthly plane, the earth as a planet, it was making devious. Right? They was repelling you from the truth. They was dissuading people and humanity from the right path, the right perspective. They was basically bewildering you. It's like when we show you the example of the sun moving through, the sun is zooming through space, and everything is zooming around, and everything is spinning around. The earth is spinning around on this axis, and then while it's spinning around on this axis, it's also spinning around the sun. And this is happening every day, right, at thousands, right, tens of thousands of miles per hour. And yet we feel nothing, right? And yet we feel nothing. No wonder people ask that question about gravity, right? So-called because they have apparent motion. Now, the other objects in the heavens around the earthly plane that are known as planets and were known as planets, they are wandering stars. They are asteres planetae, right? They are wandering stars. Why? Because they appear to go in opposite directions, right? The wandering stars are those stars that go in an opposite movement, right? An opposite movement, almost like a counter movement to the movement of everything else. If you look up wandering stars and the old meaning of wandering stars, so-called because they have apparent motion, unlike the fixed stars. For example, the pole star, right? Just an example. Originally including also the moon and the sun, but not the earth. modern scientific sense of, quote, world that orbits a star. So you see where it says right here, here's where we're coming to the modern scientific sense or the modern scientific notion of a world that orbits a star. So this is where the idea is that the Earth is a planet, a wandering star, or a ball that orbits or rotates at 66,000 maybe plus miles per hour around a star, and that star is called the sun. This idea in modern science is from when? It's from the 1630s in English. So in the English-speaking world, this sense, this modern notion that's at the crux of the controversy today with the whole flat earth theory versus the earth is a globe theory, right? This modern sense of a world that orbits a star, that the earth basically orbits or rotates at 66,000 miles per hour around the sun. This idea is from the 1630s in English. The Greek word is an enlarged form of planes. Planes, planetos, and planetos means one who wanders around, a wanderer. So this modern Babylon, this global Babylon, right? This globe Babylon theory, right? This confusion is basically now telling us that we are living on a planet, not a plane. We're not living on the earthly plane, not even on the earthly plane of consciousness anymore. No, we are on a wandering star. We are wandering around the so-called cosmos, day by day, every hour of the day, just spinning and spinning and just spinning, just almost like the sun. Where's the sun going? That was a question I wanted to ask some of the ones who are astronomers and have that so-called knowledge and understanding. When they say the sun is moving through the galaxy, and the earth and the other stars and planets and all of this is circulating around the, where is the sun going to? Is it going, is it like moving in a circle? Is it moving like from just around the whole universe? I mean, where is the sun going to? Right? Because while the sun, according to their theory, appears to be going somewhere, from our perspective, we see the sun going from east to west. And they say, well, this is because you do not understand the modern scientific sense of world that orbits a star. Well, it seems as though before roughly 1630s, many other people didn't really understand or accept, and they were not made to believe that modern scientific, really this modern scientific sense, this is really where the pseudoscience is, right? Because they declared it, and then they say, well, this is the consensus, this is what we're going to teach, and anyone who questions it, you must be stupid, something must be wrong with you, why can't you accept what we are making you believe? Because it is make-believe. One who wanders around, a wanderer, a wandering star, a planet. In medicine, check this out. In medicine, this terminology at the root of planet, in medicine has a meaning of unstable temperature. Let's see if we can get this. Unstable temperature, right? Unstable temperature, right? So here we go right here. Let's just grab that one again. Yeah, I think we got that one already. So we have planastai in the Greek to wander. Asteres, planetai, wandering star. Planetes, right, from the Greek. They don't give you the one right there. Planeta, we already touched on that. The sense of wandering, planete. Now you notice right here, you notice right there how this is very curious even for Etym Online. They give us the first few, right? Wanderer, wandering star. And then for planetes, planeta, planete, planet, planet, they don't give us any more, right? They don't give us any more. And then they then link us with a root here, Pele, Proto-Indo-European. You get that? Proto-Indo-European, right? Indo-European. They could say Proto-Indo-Canaanitish, right? Proto-Indo-European root meaning flat to spread. You see that right there, flat to spread. So what does that have to do? How does that connect with this whole planet idea? Well, see, flat and to spread, this now links with the book by John Edward Quinlan and others. And also note that the one named John Edward Quinlan, he was a British land surveyor and socialist of African descent, founder of the National Society for the Protection of the Dark Races, and editor of its main organ, the telephone, and the author of The Earth a Plane. Right? And they point out one of his particular theories right there about evaporation, which we found to be kind of interesting, that they sought to point that out right there. Let's see if we can get this. Yeah, all right. And let's do this right here. Let's do this right here. Seal this up right here. Let's go to plane. So we did the etymology on planet. One might think, well, planet and plane, is it the same etymology? Well, notice this. Remember the Pele or Pele root that we showed you, flat to spread out? Here, the etymology on plane, right? They have a noun 1 and a noun 2. The noun 1 of plane, the earth, a plane, flat surface, right? A flat surface, and we say not flat. There's highlands and lowlands, but when we say the flat surface, we're speaking about the horizon, the horizon, the horizon. The simplest of all geometrical surfaces. So a plane is defined as a flat surface and the simplest of all geometrical surfaces. Interesting, the word geo. You know where the word geo come from in the Greek? The word geo, you can look up the etymology here. Not going to get into that right here right now, but geo means earth. Metrical is like measurement, earth measurement surfaces. So a plane is a flat surface, the simplest of all geometrical surfaces. Now, what was interesting is that this brother here, John Edward Quinlan, he was a land surveyor. You know how land is surveyed. And it's interesting how land is surveyed. How surveyors, even from some of the ancient times, could survey a piece of land, right? And then from the measurements and the calculations, they could draw some very accurate maps, right? And what's interesting is that when they survey land, how do they calculate for the curvature of the earth? Since people talk about, well, the earth curves, that's why it's the convexing and the curvature of the earth. Well, if that's so, then how is a surveyor able to survey a piece of land? So when a surveyor surveys and wants to see how much measurement here, does the surveyor do anything in his calculation to say, well, you know, the earth is a ball and it curves. Therefore, for this measure of land right here, I'm gonna have to calculate into the equation, right, a curvature. It's just like them measuring light, the speed of light, right? How are they going to measure the speed of light, right? Have somebody on the other end and say 1, 2, 3. How are they going to measure? Because the light, once the light shine, it has to reach something. And to show how they've been using it, they've been using not the one-way speed of light, but the speed of light that has been measured is the round trip speed of light. You know, so by the time they shine the light over there to that thing to measure, right, what they really are measuring is the round trip, not the one-way trip. We're going to get into that a little bit more. Just make a note of that right there. Going to share the video. Why it's impossible, what's it called? Why it's impossible to measure the speed of light. We'll follow up hopefully on the speed of light video where we can get into more details of that. But here on the plane, since we are doing this vlog on John Edward Quinlan, didn't have much time here to get into some of the content of his book, but it's very interesting. They tried to, on this page here, right? Yeah, they tried to, on this particular page here, they tried to, kind of point out, oh, he had a theory about the ships, like why the ships appear the way they do when they're going out there. It's because of evaporation. But when we read through his writing, he has a very clear way of thinking. And then when his being a surveyor, when you understand surveying the earth, right? When the surveyor surveys, from what we learned about surveying, they do not calculate any curvature of the earth when they are surveying. So that becomes very interesting if the earth is, like they say, a ball. So we have a black surveyor, right? And he's like the black sheep of the so-called flat earth or anti-globe philosophy, the pseudoscience of the globe. He's not often mentioned. Coming across his work, I found, like I said, man, why don't they mention this brother here? Why don't they mention this man here? Why they bias this particular man right here. Here we go, right here. This man right here. Let's see if we can get his book right down here. Let's go over here. Where are we? Oh, we're in the screenshots. Apologies, brothers and sisters. We're in the screenshots right there. Some of what we're working on. Hopefully come forward with this right here. Let's see if we get to his pick. There we go, right here. The earth a plane. Right? The earth a plane. Right? It's the earthly plane. It's the plane earth. Right? A flat surface, simplest of all geometrical surfaces. This definition is circa 1600. It's from the Latin planum. So planum, right, though it sounds similar to planet, when we understand linguistics, these are different words, right, and different roots. Planum means flat surface, a plane, a level, a plane, like the horizon, right, is a flat surface. The horizon is a plane. The horizon is a level, right? Noun use of the neuter of adjective planus. What is planus? Flat, level, even, plain, clear, right? Now, there's the other words for plane, the secondary one in 1908, right? And this is 2 years, notice, 2 years after John Edward Quinlan wrote his book, The Earth a Plane, they came up with plane, a short for aeroplane, right? Or airplane. So the short form of aeroplane became plane, a different kind of plane. We have the noun 3, the N3 for plane. It's a tool for smoothing surfaces. The mid-14th century from Old French plan, or plane, plane, earlier plane, right? 14th century, and directly, notice the word directly, from late Latin. That's what proves that the Western Gentile romantic, right? Going back to the Latin, late Latin plana. Back formation from planare. Planare is to make level, right? To make level. Notice this, no matter how high, right, the earthly plane is, like with mountains and highlands, no matter how low it is with valleys and depressions, the horizon is that level. See, the horizon is the level of the earthly plane. Then we have plane, the noun 4, which is a tree of the genus Planatus. So here we're speaking about a native tree to Persia and the Levant. The Levant would be what they would call Palestine or the land of Canaan, or in the state of Israel, that region of the world. From Old French, plan, plane, plasne, from the Latin planatus, from the Greek planatos, from earlier plananistos, right? And then we have this over here, right? The verb. Did you know that plane is a verb? Plane as a verb is to make smooth. Early 14th century, originally in the figurative sense, to gloss over, to explain away. Mid 14th century, right, to make smooth or even, especially by the use of plane, the noun 3 from the Old French, right? The secondary verb is to soar, to glide on motionless wings. That is interesting with the earth being a plane too. To soar, to glide. But what does it say? On motionless wings. So is the earth spinning, right? Or is the heavens spinning? We say the heavens is spinning. We speak and present and preach and show the evidence that it's the celestial globe. The globe, there is a globe that exists, but it's a celestial globe, right? As well as the dome, what's called, some refer to as the dome, right? That's also like a globe in the sense of it's convexing, right? That's one of the reasons why, some of the things appear the way they appear also on this earthly plane. Early 15th century plane, from the Old French planer, to hover as a bird, to lie flat as plane, noun, plane. They say perhaps via medieval Latin in either case. Now that one is interesting because remember in the beginning where it's talked about that the spirit of Elohim, right, was upon the face, right, of the waters, right, that hovering, right, as a bird. When we get to some of the ancient, even some of the ancient mythos, whether Hebraic or even in ancient Egypt, brings out that sense, that context. Now, this plane here is an adjective having the characteristic of a plane, 1560s, from French plan, Latin planus, flat, level, even. And it's interesting when we look at the Asmodeal maps that many people call the flat earth. They're really the Asmodeal, the nautical maps. They were actually these maps that were used by sea travelers to travel from place to place. And as far as we know from our research, it was very, if you knew how to read it and use it, and some of these same maps are used even today. It's interesting how they actually use these flat, what appears to be flat earth Asmodeal type maps, right? In actual war and movement, they actually use these. They use these sort of maps, right? Even when, like in military, say they have to target something, right? I'm on a military ship and we want to hit a ship that is maybe 100, 200 miles ahead. Now, when we look over the bow of the ship, we can't see with our naked eye, we can't see this ship. By our radar, you know how the radar also was like a flat plane radar? Remember how the radar used to work? The old time radars, that circle and everything. So we know that this ship, the enemy ship, is up there. And we have missiles, state of the art. So what do? Right? We red light it. We laser it. Now notice they laser in the military, they laser objects, right, that is far so-called over the horizon that can't be seen by the naked eye. They can laser these objects like on the sea, right? And when they shoot the missile at the target, the missile does not go around a curvature of the earth, but it goes along that level line because they use this technology of lasering, right? Of lasering a target, right? And now with the digital technology, they can laser the target, right? Even though they don't see the target with their naked eye because they're on the waters. Now, if we're on one boat and the other boat now is a ship, well, really they call it boat in the military. The other boat is going forward, right? Even a submarine, the other boat is going forward. And we're watching this boat going forward, right? At a certain point, it's going to go over this visual kind of illusion. It's actually a visual illusion. Waters, if you understand waters, the principle of waters, and also with the dome and how other things work, you understand how these illusions happen. In fact, we repeat a lot of these illusions in other ways. We see these illusions all the time. Like look in a glass and then look through a clear glass, then pour some water in it, then put something in the water. You'll see how the image will be distorted a little bit. So when we see a boat going forward, right, at a certain point, it's going to appear that that boat has gone over the horizon. But now if we have good cameras, right, good binoculars and cameras, we can zoom in, right, if the strength of the camera is able, and we'll see that by zooming in, the boat is still there beyond our naked eye visual range, but it's there. And as I explained, if this is a military movement, right, an order of action, we can laser that target, right, and shoot a missile, right, or weapons, right, projectiles at that target, namely missiles, right, and the missile is going to go in a straight line formation. So it's not going to go around a curve like people imagine it when they say, well, the reason why you don't see the boat no more, it's going around the curvature of the earth. But that's not what really happens in reality, all right? And even the military understands that. There was one of the flat earth videos where some of the military men actually had explained that as well. You know, how they understand that, you know, when they are doing what they are doing in the military and they have to use the military science, you know, there's such a thing called military science, right? And you know when they say science to prove it, military science mean that when they do these calculations and everything, and they laser that target that they can't see with their naked eye, but their radars, which go further than naked eye, shows that it's straight up ahead, right? And we've targeted it and we lasered it, that the missile, we don't have to program in the missile calculation to go around the curvature of the Earth. Actually, if we were to view the action from a third perspective, triangulated, we'll see that that missile went on a level, a horizontal horizon level. It did not make any curvature, right? Except if we are going to hit them by shooting the missile up in the air and arc it to come down on them. But if we're going to shoot them straight across the water and hit them like in the, you know, the side or the body of the ship, then we can shoot it straight and we can straight line it and it's going to go in a direct horizontal. This is what we're explaining and seeking to explain right here by the word plane. Right? Flat surface, simplest of all geometrical surfaces. And you know what? By not making any calculations, right? Don't make any calculations for the missile, for no curvature of the Earth, because it's a straight line. The reason why we didn't see that particular target is because our visual, you know, there's a limitation to our naked eye visual sight, right? And because of the illusion of water and the horizon, it appears that that boat that we could see at a certain point has disappeared. But with good optical equipment, right? With good technology, even when they measure the target like a boat, like one battleship to the next battleship, when they measure the distance that it is beyond visual range, they are measuring how high it is, how low it is, and if there was a curvature of the Earth, that would have to come into the consideration of their measurement. And in real time, you know, because military has to have success like that. We're shooting off missiles and we don't measure the curvature of the Earth. That means that when the missile gets to a certain point and the ship is still moving, the missile is going to drop down in the water or go off course because we didn't measure the geometrical curve of the Earth. But they don't have to, right? Because it's level vibes. There is a level, plainness, quality or condition of being flat or level. We keep it on the level, right? And the enemy ship, right? We blow the devil out of the water by keeping it on the level. We're going to get into a little bit more of the brother's book right here because we thought we'll be able to share, you know, a little bit of the opening, you know, right up right here, here, you know, yeah, this is just a part of his book. You can read it right here, part of it for yourself, and pause it, right? It is an unquestionable fact that the Earth is an extended plane with an irregular land surface. So I said, wow, this is someone who had thought about this in the same way. When the flat Earth kind of frenzy was coming up, we said there's some truth to some of the things that they are saying and pointing out, but the Earth is not flat. When it's the Earth, speaking about the land, because there's highlands and there's lowlands. But the thing that always remains consistent is the horizon, is the level, right? Is the level. This is why we know that Ethiopia is the rooftop, it's like the heaven, the rooftop, the highland, right, of East Africa, and Egypt, even ancient Egypt, is the lowland. Because if we were able to look at Ethiopia, the highlands, and Egypt, what we'll see is that the horizon is here in the center, and that Ethiopia being a highland and East Africa, it goes high above the mountains. I mean, high above the horizon. But then as we go further to the north and we go to where Egypt is, we'll see that Egypt, right down in the Nile Valley, that the Nile Valley is far below the horizon, right? So this is what we're saying, that it's not flat. So when he said here that it's an unquestionable fact that the Earth is an extended plane with an irregular land surface and not of spherical or globular shape with two flattened ends, as scientists and astronomers assert in their speculations, and most people believe. Neither is it pear-shaped. You remember? Now this is interesting. This scientist here, right, basically reprove Neil deGrasse Tyson, that Neil Tyson deGrasse, reprove, because he was going off talking about, well, the earth is flat and it's not a ball, it's like pear-shaped. And many people took that as a new idea. Pear-shaped, ha 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 ha. We heard about it before, but we didn't know exactly where. But it's this brother that said it. Neither is it pear-shaped. He wrote this, remember, in 1906, as Professor W.J. Solis suggested as recently as the 24th of May, 1906, at the Royal Institution, Albemarle Street in London. That the earth is flat can be verified by our senses from every point of view. Practical demonstrations can be given of this shape, which should satisfy every unprejudiced and reasonable mind. And there are numerous references in God's holy word, the Bible, to an earth of this shape. Here, this is the rest we're going to leave for the eye right here to check out and to read, to pause and get a better idea of it, and show you where to find his book. And it's very interesting. Hopefully we'll follow up on it some more. But the last little paragraph, he says, it was not by white scientists and astronomers that the magnetic attraction toward the North Pole was discovered. Did you hear that? It was not by white scientists and astronomers that the magnetic attraction toward the North Pole was discovered, but by learned Chinese. By learned Chinese, the people from Xin, or they say Xin, the Sini, like in the Bible, right? Sino, Chinese, learned Chinese who knew then as their offsprings know now. Well, that was 19 something, right? That was around the time of Hong Kong, right? But maybe they have bought into, some of this. But as their offspring know now that the earth was flat. So here he does say it, the earth was flat, right? And we'll leave these last ones here for you to see for yourself. And we'll call this Shalom, Chaverim, Shalom. Give thanks, brothers and sisters. Here, just to add this, even here among the flat earth, right, very few have talked about this brother. There are a few, but very few speak about his work, right? And whether you agree or disagree, if you black or not, and you say, oh, he's a kook and everything, but check out his work first. And as he said, by every, how did he say it right there? By every unprejudiced and reasonable mind. Right, and here's his work right here. It was actually 6 pages. 6 pages. Right, and here's the book that he did. Right, The Earth, the Plane. Right, The Earth, the Plane. And here we're going to seal up with this. Shalom, Chaverim. Shalom, the earth, a plane. The plain earth. And this, the plain truth.